Well, good evening. Wow, that's loud. I'm Peter Probasco. I'm the vice chair for the Mat-Su Fish and Wildlife Commission. Our chairman's on the TV, Andy. He's in the lovely island of Hawaii. So he asked me to chair the meeting today. And before we get started, I'd just like on the table here, go around and introduce themselves. And Maya, why don't you start?
And the first rule for everyone at the table is you do have to talk into the microphone. Our team is live streaming. They can't hear you otherwise. But I'm Maya DeSalvo. I'm planning staff here at the Borough and help support the commission.
Hello, everybody. I'm Larry Engel, member of the commission.
I'm Howard Delo. I'm a member of the commission.
Good evening. My name's Israel Payton. I'm Director of Division of Sport Fish. Thank you.
My name is Jim Sykes. I'm an ex officio member of the commission.
Kendra Zamzo, member of the commission.
My name is Gabe Kidder. I'm a member of the commission as well.
I'm Colton Lipka, Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Commercial Fisheries Area Manager for Upper Cook Inlet.
And I'm Sam Ivey. I'm a sport fish area management biologist in Northern Cook Inlet, based in Palmer.
Andy? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to do a roll call to establish a quorum. Go ahead. Andy Couch? Here. Gabriel?
Here.
Howard?
Here.
Larry? Here. Tim Hale? Tim Hale? Kendra?
Here.
And Jim?
Here.
Maya, do we have a quorum? Thank you. As tradition with the Fish and Wildlife Commission, we want to acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional lands of the Dena'ina people, and we are grateful for their continued stewardship of the land, fish, and wildlife throughout time immemorial. We have the agenda before us. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Are there any objections to the motion? Thank you. So the agenda is approved. At this time, we'd like to do pledge allegiance. Our flag is behind you, so all please stand and move your headgear, please. So at this time, we'll have opening comments. As I stated, this is the Mat-Su Fish and Wildlife Commission, and we do this on an annual basis where we meet with the fishery side of Fish and Game, and later in the year, we meet with the wildlife side. And I really appreciate the department first providing the information ahead of the meeting, as well as being here present. And my understanding, Israel, you're sitting in for the commissioner?
That is correct. Big shoes to fill.
All right. Well, I was hoping Doug would be here so we could have a little fun, but that's okay. Appreciate
He
it.
sent a local boy so you guys would go easy.
All right. Appreciate it. So thank you for being here and quite the audience. And when we go to the audience comments, we'll get a mic right up there. And when you come up, state your name, and we try to limit it to a couple minutes, whatever you have to say, and we appreciate it. Israel, do you have any opening comments?
I hadn't planned on any, but since I got the mic, I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about me if you don't know me. I recently became Director of Sport Fish. I've been in the position since May I have some excellent staff here with me, both Sam and Samantha, the area biologists. A little bit of history on me. I came from the AC process, local AC here, and I served on the Board of Fish for 2 full terms. And I was born and raised in the Susitna watershed, specifically up on the Hayes River. Grew up in Squintna. I was a fishing guide for many years and also subsistence fisherman, and king salmon are near and dear to me. Your pain is being felt by us in the department as well on these low returns. So I can sympathize and identify with that, and I feel that as well. So.
Thank you, Israel. At this time, we will go to audience participation. And when you come up, like I said, please introduce yourself. And this is a great time to raise any concerns you may have with the Fish and Wildlife Commission or Last Department Fish and Game to hear. And try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. So we'll start in here and then we'll go to the people online. Thank you.
Hello. Hey, everybody. My name is AJ Hoffman. I work at Three Rivers Fly and Tackle. Appreciate all the support tonight and you guys taking time out of your schedule to make this meeting possible for everybody. Doesn't take a scientist to know that we've got a decline in the salmon species. It doesn't take an economist to know that we have a problem within our borough of creating more revenue based off of a healthy fishery. We're seeing this day to day, and that implication goes down on our native trout runs and our grayling species. So as a shop owner, I'm telling you guys, with the loss of salmon, it's not only the lack of salmon and resources that they provide to our economic area, but we're putting more pressure on a fishery that is not enhanced with no regulations and retention still allowed. Most states do like a blue ribbon stream program or something along those lines to provide for the health of that fishery being a catch and release fishery. Some of them go to barbless. There's a lot of emotion, and I'm shaking right now. There's a lot of emotion involved in this fishery because everybody's so passionate about it. But setting anger aside, setting blame aside, what can we do to move forward? It's not this administration or the employees that are currently employed that have got us to the place we're at, and we're all here. This is the place where if change isn't done now, we can blame the people sitting in this room because it's evident we have an issue. We have an issue on the Susitna drainage, which drains the Chalitna and the Talkeetna system, and we're not getting salmon coming back. Commercial guys in the past and the sport fishermen have been at odds, but when their permits aren't worth anything and when the pound per salmon goes way down, as we've seen a trend with, we're fighting a battle in state where now we're going to be unified because there are no fish returning to this resource. So I don't know what needs to happen to move the ball forward in the right direction. And I am a business owner that profits off of fishing. If we need to close everything down to include spring openers, then that's what we have to do. But that means the nets are out. That means the subsistence nets are out. That means there's federal and state levels that have to be working together. And to me, it seems like the systems are not connecting the dots. That's beyond a standard employee. That is at a much higher level of governance to where we need to unify these groups to create a whole plan that allows everybody to work together and bring our salmon back. They're a resilient fish. They've proved themselves in the past to come back. We've had low numbers in the Deshka before, and they have bounced back. But this kicking the can down the road mentality is not working for the public, and it's not working for our state. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
Yeah, good. Yeah, this is Ben Allen, and yeah, I'm a fishing guide here in Matsu Valley, and I hate public speaking, but I love fishing. I'm really passionate about these fish, and to not be long-winded, you know, I had thoughts this summer, like, should I move somewhere else? I mean, I'm 38 years old, 37 years old, and I'm young enough to start over. I mean, I just kind of feel like sport fishing, there's no future. I've been doing this 13 years, and the trend has been down, down, down. And I'm patient, happy-go-lucky, try to always be positive. And it's every year it's just tougher and tougher. And I mean, I shake the tree pretty hard. If you ask anybody in this room, I fish hard. I fish all over the valley. And I'm kind of at my limit right now. I've done trout, pike, and I'm really discouraged, extremely discouraged. And you talk about our king salmon, and king salmon, I'm like what Israel said about kings are my passion. King salmon are why I came to Alaska. I was at a point where am I going to be a steelhead guide in Idaho or a king salmon in Alaska? And I chose to live here, raise my family here. I'm ski coaching. I'm involved in the community because of king salmon. And now I'm thinking, this isn't sustainable. My passion is I want to be a professional salmon fishing guide. And doggone it, I went to the Houston Fishing Show last year, and what do people want to fish for? This is in Texas. They want to fish for kings. I can't book a king trip. I can't even book a catch and release king trip. And to be honest, I'm so passionate about these fish right now, I don't even want to fish for them because they need protection. I think that we're on the brink of losing genetics. And once it's gone, it's gone. And I got a taste of what the potential is. I mean, there's amazing habitat, big fish, just a diversity of fisheries, just so much diversity in the valley. I mean, you got the Deshka, warm water fish producer. You got, all the way up into Denali State Park. And so there's a diversity of problems, and it seems like the problem is equal. It's just bad everywhere. And other parts of the state with different habitats and different everything is having the same problem. And the only answer that I've gotten was it's a marine situation predominantly. And I would just like to know, like, what are we doing to change? Like, what is the state of Alaska doing on a statewide basis to improve the marine environment and survival? I think we can all agree it's a statewide problem. So I could talk forever about kings. I'll shut up about that. When we talk about coho, just one thing, I just want to point this out for the Little Sioux. One area I think we can improve on. One thing I have observed is that on low water years, we have lower returns on the Little Sioux. And my theory is, and I have enough data and because that's what I pay attention to. I give my customers the best opportunity to catch fish. I'm committed to that 100%. My theory is on low water years, the fish, they come in, high tide, they go back out, they stage. And I think our emergency orders in our commercial fishery, and I'm not anti-commercial, like my friends are set netters out there. I'm not that, but I think river conditions should play a role in commercial management. That's just something I've observed. The second thing is I think the ray of hope, this year, the coho was horrible, horrendous. And I can't help but think that 2019 drought was so extreme, what effect that had this year. And in the future, if we have, if we go through another environmental something as devastating as that drought was, I mean, they measured 80 degrees in the Deshka River. I mean, there was certain tribs of the Susitna the fish could not get up into. Fish were dying. Anyways, so I think if we know we have something like that happens in the future, we can take protection ahead of time in the commercial fishery, and we can kind of ease up on that. So that's just my thoughts. Sorry. Yep, that's it. That's all of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Hello, my name is Shane Ford. I guide out of Willow. I don't know how to word this properly, but we can write all the emergency orders we want when we have zero enforcement. I've been guiding on Willow for 3 to 4 years. Do you know how many times I've been stopped on Willow? Zero, not once. I spend a whole 5-10 minutes at the takeout hitting Willow over to the mouth and back up to the takeout. I can write if I had a ticket book, I could write tickets there every single day of the summer. Emergency orders are out, guys chucking number 5 and 6 treble hooks, spinners, fishing for trout. Caught a guy fishing for kings this summer on Little Willow. Big glob bait, emergency orders out, got into it with him, called the troopers. Troopers called me back. Yeah, we caught up with him. I watched the bait, saw him, gave him all the information. Trooper called me back, got my side of the story. I get a phone call back 10 minutes later. Oh, they weren't using bait, they were using balls of fire. I said, that is the definition of bait. Look it up in the regs. Any attractant, yada, yada. No, it's not. He argued with me. So I texted him a copy of the regulations and he's like, okay, it's been dealt with. That's it. So when we have zero enforcement, we can write all these rules in the whole entire world. And if nobody gives a damn or we can't do anything about it, it's absolutely pointless. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Corey Berg. I'm a fishing guide as well. What Shane said is absolutely correct. I was on the Little Sioux. I think I might have been the last one to guide a trip down there. I don't know, Ben might have been, but when you guys dropped it down to 1 and then it closed down, I wasn't even down there. I shut my trips down. Same thing Shane said. There was people down there fishing for silvers. I know they were. They went downriver. They come back, flaying fish. No one's down there enforcing it. Nothing we can do. I mentioned it, told people there's no, there's a camp post down there. There's no one in the pay shack. Handful of us here are on the river more than anyone, locals, So yeah, enforcement's a big thing when you guys do emergency orders. I'm on the river probably more than anyone in here. I know Ben's down there quite a bit, but I also bear hunt off it and everything. And the stuff I see is pretty wild down there. I wouldn't have to buy a license. I haven't been checked in forever, but I play by the book. So, and I think if you guys had some enforcement, we could stop this because, I know kings are getting kept when it's closed to catch and release. And when silvers are closed to where we can't even guide anglers and make money, people are still down there fishing for them. So what Shane said is absolutely correct even on the systems I fish and guide. So that's my 2 cents.
My name is Bradley Young, and I don't have a stake in this game except I have some bad news for you. Our Constitution says these fish are for the benefit of the citizens of the state. And in 13 states in the lower 48 where commercial interests, just like our fish traps did here, they passed a law, it's one sentence, ban all commercial interests within 6 miles of the coast. That was supplied to me by a resident of this state who is in Florida who runs quite a commercial operation that they passed down there. The case law is there. And if you don't start managing this thing and quit lying to us about scientific management to extinction, it will be here. And they will put that on the ballot. It's one sentence. And nothing can block it because of the case law. I have nothing else to say to you other than get after it and get it straightened out because it's a political issue because of overtaking. The Deshka people, Tyonek and Aklutna, lived over there for thousands of years and would have starved out 3 years ago with your management. I have nothing more to say to you people other than get after it or it's coming to the ballot.
My name is Dan, also a guide here in the Valley. This is my wife. I'm just going to mirror what everybody says is what a guide sees firsthand on the rivers and the lakes here in South Central. The word extinction was just used. I've been a guide here for 6 years. I'm a new guy on the block, but in those 6 short years, I have seen with my own eyes a decline in our salmon. There's no denying it. The escapement goals in my 6 years here, I've seen the goalposts move to less and less. What was escapement goals like 40 years ago? 3, 4, 5 times what they are now. So there is a trend. It's in front of us. There is no denying it anymore. Enforcement. Poaching is rampant in the valley. Okay? I kingfish on the Knik because that's all I can, that's where I can go to take my people to kingfish. Because Ben is right. People want to come to Alaska and catch king salmon. When people take a trip here, they close their eyes and they think of holding a giant king. And we can't do it anymore. All these people here are trying to make a living and we can't do it. Okay? AJ is a business owner trying to sell tackle and support us. Thank God, I hate to say it, for pike, because it's given us as guides some other things to target. I know they got a bad name, but it's a fact. Okay? Corey, same thing. Seeing poaching down on the Little Sioux, not being enforced. I see poaching on the Knik. I call the troopers, nothing happens. Okay? So all these things that these people are saying, same with Shane, this is happening and this is real. And in my 6 years, I've seen a change. This guy sitting in front of me, I think has been a guide the longest out of everybody here, Colton Connor. And I guarantee you that he has seen things change in a major way in his time. So you hear my voice? That's called passion. Okay? We're passionate about what we're doing. We try to be professionals for our customers. And unfortunately, our resources are failing. So lastly, please keep the emergency order in place for Big Lake char. That is the one positive thing that I've seen happen. Those fish are flourishing, and it's giving us another resource to target, catch, and release. People also have dreams. Louise and fishing for lake trout is sometimes out of reach, but Big Lake has a great resource now with those char. So I'm letting you know firsthand, that's a positive thing. Thank you.
My name's Colton Connor. I was born and raised in Willow. I've been guiding, just finished my 21st season. I'm going to keep the guiding and the industries kind of off the topic. The topic is, I grew up on Little Willow. I grew up on Willow Creek. I have 2 daughters. They are not going to experience what I experienced. And that is not cool. And we have literally traveled to other parts of the United States to fish for salmon because of what's happening. And that's just the realistic view. And I'm tired of the blame. It's the sports, it's the guides, it's the commercials. Well, it's all of us. And there needs to be changes, and those changes need to start today. Those changes need to start years ago, but we can only worry about what's in front of us because we can't go back. And so I think we really need to have proactive management and not reactive management. I think it's easier to react when the numbers are down. It's easier to react when we see people poaching, react when we see something we don't agree with. But what we need to do is we need to look at what we have, analyze the data, and be proactive for the years to come. Because if there's no proaction, we're going to experience some of the things that we've seen. And so I think it's really important to me, and I think to a lot of people in this room, including you guys, that proactive management is in the front of our thoughts and what we do, and boots on the ground and people out and about and enforcing and being able to be there on the rivers, talking to the people who are on the rivers. It doesn't have to be talking to a guide, but there's locals that fish 6 days a week. Those are good resources. So I think we need to be proactive, and I would encourage us to continue to think that way. Thanks.
My name is Dan Suprak, and I run and operate Alaska Chinook charters. I'm going to bring up, I guess it's your very first question that you had about the Matanuska Chinook salmon stocks. Okay, we're blaming it on habitat. We're blaming it on a lot of things. Okay, but as all these people here have said, I've seen it too. There's a lot of poaching that goes on. I see people out there running 3 lines And we as guides are restricted. We can't fish with our clients, okay? They're allowed one line. You mention that to somebody about, hey, it's only one line. They're ready to shoot you out there. And that's not a joke. They are. They're ready to shoot you for that. I've had the pin pulled on my trailer hitch. I drove home that night. That pin could have came out. My boat could have been on the highway and could have killed people. It isn't funny anymore what these people are doing out there to our fishery. Also, one of the other things that I look at is the fact that, okay, past Bluff Point, 2 king salmon, no annual limit. I don't understand that. I've been told those are BC fish. If we know where our fish are coming from, we should be watching what's going on there, okay? Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of lodges. My stepson has a lodge. He runs it down in Kodiak. 2 fish per person, per day, no annual limit. And they're getting awful good at harvesting those fish with the electronics that they have. We need to do something fast. Whether it's shut everything down. I'm 70 years old. It's not going to hurt me like these young guys.
So my name is Brian McKay. I own Alaska Outdoors Addiction based in Anchorage. We run Kodiak all the way up to Talkeetna, up to the canyon with Aaron there. And kind of piggy off what Dan said, if you go down to Kodiak in June, July, second week of August, we are absolutely slaughtering kings every single day. And I'm talking like Ben and Corey, everybody's talking. I mean, Corey and I fished 100 hours this year before we even hooked a fish. I go down to Kodiak, 30 minutes, boats limited out, and that's just every boat, 12 of them, you know? So when we look at those fish, and I talked to AJ about this at the meeting last, a good 85% of those fish are all clipped. They're all hatchery fish, very few wild fish. So I don't know if that south of Bluff Point is making a difference, but like for us, we get told all our clients this year, we're not going to be keeping 2 kings a year or a day. You want to catch kings, call somebody else, because I don't know where they're going. Don't know if they're going to Klutna. Don't know if they're going to Ninilchik, Kasilof, anywhere in South Central, if they're going down to Washington or what. But I mean, you go 3 years back, we caught over 300 kings on Deshka, catch and release, before it got shut down. Last year we caught 27, nothing. We couldn't fish Deshka, couldn't fish Little Sioux. Kenai's been gone for years. And as Colton said, being proactive, I mean, I think Alexander Creek is a giant sore thumb that everybody kind of overlooks. The poaching, the overfishing that went on there in the late 90s and early, what did you guys close it, 2002? Was unbelievable. People would drive by the Deshka to go to Alexander Creek and kill fish. And now that's been closed well over a decade. There still are no fish there. So, I mean, once they're gone, they're gone. And we're kind of tired of getting, like Dan was saying, you know, for us young guys, we're going to be looking at glaciers and bears and, hey, check out that tree and that eagle. And sorry, you know, we go to shows like Ben was saying. We went to Harrisburg. They pushed, 200,000 people through that show. And I'm like, sorry, guys, you want to catch kings? Call somebody else. Oh, so-and-so said they slayed them. I said, so-and-so is lying to you because there aren't any fish to catch. And then I come back from Kodiak this year and middle of August, and the Big Sioux shut down. Big Sioux, Little Sioux, nothing. You can't catch silvers. So we go up to Talkeetna. There's no water, like Ben said. And sure enough, starts raining. And we're standing on the bank with my last group of clients. And I look down and I can just see all the fish pushing through. And I got guys above me snagging. I got guys below me snagging. and it's just mega frustrating. There's got to be some sort of change politically, in the office, in the management. But sooner rather than later, I've been telling my clients, you want to catch kings, you want to catch silvers, you want to catch anything other than a trout, you might want to come now, because in 5-10 years, we're not even going to be fishing. There's not going to be anything here. Be going to Washington, fishing Columbia, patry fish. Thankfully, the reservations down there, they have that option. We do not. When our fish are gone, that's it. They're done. They're gone. And ain't nothing going to bring them back with the 3 or 4 state-run hatcheries that we have. So be nice to, like Colin was saying, see something a little bit proactive. I don't want to wait till March and April to hear that, oh, everything's closed. Close it now. Close it for everybody. You know, it seems pretty cut and dry at this point. There's not any fish left. No reason anybody should be out fishing for them. So, thank you.
My name's Mike Beck, and I live here. Been here about 11 years now. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not a guide, nothing like that. I just love to fish. I came up here on vacation with my wife and my kids about 20 years ago, and there were fish everywhere. And we had a great time. Went out with a guide, caught fish, went out offshore. It just, had a great time. And once all our kids were grown and out of the house, and it was just me and my wife, we decided we were going to move up here. We sold our stuff in Texas. We came up here, bought a house here in Wasilla. We just sold that. We're renting here in Palmer. We're building a place, a small place in Willow, because I love to fish out there. And all the things with family and all that, wanting us to move back and all that, we still love it here. And we like to fish here. I don't know all the ins and outs between, I've heard the commercial and the sport, and the fish board and this and that and the other. And I don't know all the particulars. I just know everything I got's invested in being here, and I want to fish. And every year it gets shut down, and there's less and less and less fish. I don't care who's to blame. I don't care about, well, we'll just close it for these guys, or we'll just do this, or it's the weather, or it's just, something's got to be done. We got to get together. We got to fix this. Not going to fix itself. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle. If there's no fish, nobody fishes. That's just unacceptable. We can do things. We've seen things happen in the lower 48, and they bring things back, whatever it takes. If it takes, opening more hatcheries or something, quit spending money. I know about the state because I do work. Anyway, we got to quit spending money on things that just for stock in lakes with stock trout and things like that, and start putting their money into fixing this problem. And as a taxpayer and a citizen and a guy who loves to fish and loves this area and loves the people here, got a lot of friends, people that I've known for a while, and we all love to fish. And I'm just here to tell you, I'm going to be involved as much as I can. Whatever we need to do, we do. But I'm just asking all of y'all to really look at this and decide, put all whatever aside, and let's get the program together and fix this thing and get these fish rolling. This place it should be a world-class fishery, period. It shouldn't be even an issue. But whatever past mismanagement, overfishing, you got the weather, you got all these anomalies working against it. We got to save it. We got to shut it down, and I don't get the fish. We got to shut it down, and I don't get the fish. But that means everybody gets shut down. Everybody. That's the only thing, because if some people aren't, whether there's some poaching going on or whatever, it needs to be enforced. But even so, there's a lot of fish being taken before they ever get up the river. And that's gotta leave. We gotta let them get where they gotta go, and we gotta replace what we're losing. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Cody. I'm a local fisherman too, not a guide like any of these guys. So, no economic interest when I say this, other than, the value of my house and and everything. that I have invested in the state, like this gentleman said. But I got to say that, you know, over the course of my time here, I've lived in 48 states, and I've seen, you know, fisheries management in all of them, big fishermen. And I've seen, you know, just in the time that I've been in this state, you know, dozens of emergency orders per year where, you know, guides and, you know, your local bank fishermen together are like trying to figure out what, you know, what you're allowed to fish for that day. But setting all that aside, right, there's an unprecedented abuse of the resource coming from certain sectors of the commercial, certain sectors, not just the commercial guys. This is not a bank fisherman railing against commercial fishermen at large. This is, you know, this is recognizing that when in a state where if I don't pick enough rib meat off a moose that I kill, I can get a ticket, I can get arrested, I can get in serious trouble for that. That at the same time, millions of king salmon, millions of halibut, millions of fish that like everybody I know from all 48 states I've ever lived call me and like ask for the deets about whether I'm crushing them, are getting chucked over the side of boats by the shovelful, by the shovelful on a daily basis, by factory trawlers. And it's just really disheartening to know that, you know, that as that gentleman just said, this should be a world-class fishery, right? And to hear all accounts, it used to be, but, you know, these fish aren't even making it into the river. And, you know, it has to have something to do with where they sit in the water column in the ocean, because you can't say it's just a habitat problem in the rivers when every other species of salmon that doesn't sit as low as the king salmon and the chum salmon do in the water column are having bumper years year after year. So it just, to me, it seems like, you know, a real simple math equation that it doesn't sound like has been managed for correctly. And we're hoping, I think it's pretty unanimous, whether somebody's a guide or somebody's a local fisherman or, or maybe even somebody who's looking to come spend their money in our state and provide well-paying family wage jobs to the people that live in this area. It's high time we start managing correctly for the resource.
Sorry, guys, I got a big mouth. My wife can attest to that. The one thing I hope everybody here walks away with is passion, right? You guys have people, resources you can reach out to. We started the South Central Alaska Sport Fishing Association, a nonprofit in this area. There's a bunch of federal funding coming out right now. There's a lot of stuff that is applicable to our area. I hear when I talk to Sam, when I talk to Israel, when I talk to other people in the industry, there's a lack of funding, something that they can't directly affect. So start talking to us. Start letting us know where you need help. Every single one sitting to the left and right of me and behind me and in front of me is willing to do whatever it takes to help the fishery. The fly shop can help. We can help. We've set up the avenues to receive funding. We've set up the avenues to work with you guys and can join projects that are beneficial. What we are not are biologists. We are just passionate fishermen. And what we are not is state officials. We need to know a direction and funding in order to chase it down so we can adequately stifle this. And if not, it comes down to people being so passionate, politics then get involved. And then it gets ugly. And then it ruins one side or the other. A healthy fishery allows everybody to harvest from it, everybody to responsibly harvest from it. An unhealthy fishery leaves one group feeling inadequate. And right now it's the sport fishermen. And commercial fishing is right behind it, with the price per pound on salmon and what their permits are worth are not going to be there in 10 years. And you're going to have a bunch of belly up family owned operations that have been generational in this state and relied on that resource. So please reach out to all of us. We're here to help. This isn't a spears and pitchforks type of a meeting. I don't feel that. It's passion. We're sick and tired of it. And we want to know how to help. It's a big animal for you guys to tackle on your own. So don't be ignorant to the fact that you have professionals in the industry that see more river time than anybody in this room a year wanting to reach out and provide you with resources, data, information. If you need us to man weirs, we can do that. Mother Nature is also beating us up. That's outside of our control. We have to think forward. We're not getting complete coho studies. That's a big issue. We're seeing historical flooding in the falls. It's a problem, you guys. We just need to get that animal laid in front of us and realize that you have advocates behind you. You just got to ask.
So, real quick here, we do have an agenda. And I think everybody would like to hear the information that the department will provide, and then we'll have a question and answer. And so at this time, Jim, I'd like to finish though. Please. Sure.
Before we do get to our very important agenda, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here tonight and telling your story, because your passion and your knowledge and your feelings and the reality that you bring to the situation is important. We are 9 people on this commission. We have brought a lot of resources to Department of Fish and Game for scientific data. We've tried to avoid the politics. It's always impossible because this is a fully allocated fishery in Cook Inlet. So the bottom line is not everybody can have everything they want, because nobody will have anything. And so there are, you can consider yourself being called, because in addition to the state who is here tonight for this discussion, the federal government is overtaking management of the EEZ in Cook Inlet, which is 3 miles offshore, south of Calgon Island, basically. And so they are implementing a management plan. North Pacific Fisheries Management Council has given up, but the National Marine Fisheries Service has their proposal out there. Comments are closing December 18th on the draft proposal. Then they are going to focus in on that, and there will be another opportunity to comment probably in February or March. But it's extremely important because these are some of the waters that we have secured a corridor to try and bring more people to the north. And now it will be under federal management, which has no provisions yet, and they don't have much data. They're relying on the state's data and none of their own. Also important, this is the Board of Fish year for finfish, and I believe the meeting starts February 13th. Comments are due there the 8th, but we have a hard time getting people to go there because this meeting lasts for 3 weeks sometimes. But you can get the agenda, and it's very important to testify because they often think that because there aren't very many people who have these stories, that it's not important. And you have demonstrated here tonight that your story is important, and invite anybody, whether they're commercial, bait shop, whatever, it is important to tell your story, and you have to tell it over and over, but keep the passion that you have brought here tonight, because that is what is important, and we have to bring attention to your stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Give one last opportunity here in the audience before I go online to see if there's anybody that has not had the opportunity to speak.
I'm Pat Brashler. I started coming up here in the late 70s, fished the Kenai River, watched that get destroyed, and finally moved up here in the 90s, gave up on the Kenai, came to Upper Cook Inlet, and sad to say I'm watching that get destroyed too. And I'm not sure if it's management, if it's commercial fishing, and I'm not anti-commercial fishing. My grandfather was a pioneer at Bristol Bay, and but things got to change. Thinking outside the box for resident Alaskans to be able to take my grandson fishing on the river and catch a salmon is huge to me. And seeing that giant Kenai salmon hanging on the wall down in the museum, that's what's going to happen with their kings in the valley. They're just going to be put on a museum wall, and everybody's going to get to look at what has happened, and it's getting destroyed. and management on Upper Cook Inlet needs to change, because they're slaughtering those fish before they get up here. For a road system that has a supply of 90% of the resident Alaskans to get to use this resource is not happening. It gets shut down. And if it's a Seattle fleet or a out-of-state fleet that gets to butcher all these fish before they get here, then that's the way it is. A lot of talk hasn't been on trawlers, hasn't been the management side of things, but we're getting a lack of fish, and it needs to stop. So whatever we can do to let those fish get up to this Northern Cook Inlet region where we have a resident resource to, and have the guides take people fishing, and that's what needs to change. We need to let these fish get into the Northern Cook Inlet, and they're getting, I think, gobbled up by the Cook Inlet fleet that's targeting these red salmon. So whatever we can do to change that, I'm all down for that.
Yeah, I just want to say you guys are very horrible at your jobs. I don't know why ain't the main commissioner here for Fish and Game tonight? That just proves that he doesn't care about anything we have to say. Is he hiding down in Juneau? I know Rick Sinnott. I don't know how long you've been in Fish and Game for. He's been retired for many years. I also know Dave Rutz very well. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of people are pissed off at Fish and Game by how things are being managed. I trap all year. I hunt all year. I don't know where your guys' management plans are coming up. If it's you guys are sitting in your offices coming up with them and going off paperwork from 20 years ago, but keep going how you guys are going, because you guys are destroying everything. The sheep, the moose, the caribou, the fishing, everything. You guys should all be embarrassed to yourself how you act. You're not good at your job. You guys don't know how to manage. And it's not just you. It's the Anchorage office, Palmer office, it's the Glen Allen office. It's all you guys. You guys are all terrible at it. Should be ashamed of yourself. Comes down to money. You think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. I think you're a joke.
I will ask that we keep this meeting professional. I appreciate your comments, and you did very well. Thank you. Great.
Yeah, look at me and lift your eyelids. You don't give a fuck what any of us say here right now.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Neil DeWitt. I'm a landowner, personal use, subsistence user, sport fisherman up in Trapper Creek. I bought my land. I had fish up there. I had moose and everything that I wanted. That's why I bought the land there. Now, I'm not here to defend ADF&G, but I will say their hands are somewhat tied. And the reason I say that is the federal side of the House, North Pacific Management Council, is in session right now. And I haven't seen any of you guys in this room, and that includes these up here. None of you have been at that meeting and telling them what you told these folks here tonight. But as I say, I'm not here defending Fish and Game, but you need to look at where the problem starts. The trawl fleet out there is only letting so many through. Their bycatch is way higher than what our escapement goals are. If we can get them stopped or slowed down some, we might stand a chance to actually get some fish back here. Then ADF&G can do their job and give you folks what you're asking for. So it's the big picture, not just the bottom corner we got to look at. So tomorrow, being that they're over there at the Hilton, they've been there for a week already in their meetings. I expect to see some of you folks. Thank you.
I got farted off.
So Mayak, would you go online to see who would like to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yep. You can go ahead.
This is Greg Acorn. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Appreciate what you do, and I understand how difficult it is to do your jobs. And I've been around a lot longer than most of them people talking in that meeting, I guarantee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Greg. I have a few phone numbers I'm going to start with. If you, oh, we have a hand raised. Ted, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Ted, I'm sorry, I have to go to an event, so I just want to get my comment in quickly here before I have to leave the meeting. First of all, thank you to the Fish and Wildlife Commission for sponsoring this meeting. I've been listening to the comments, and obviously there's a lot of passion there. I think from my perspective, I think it's really important that people take their passion and bring that to the Board of Fisheries meeting, and as it was indicated, to the North Pacific Fishery Management Council. My perspective, I worked with Fish and Game quite a bit. I think all the people there are really decent people. I think there's a lot of angst about the change in salmon populations. And obviously people are very passionate about that, and they have to direct their passion somewhere. But I really feel the most appropriate thing is exactly what Neil DeWitt said, is you need to bring that passion to the Board of Fisheries, North Pacific Fishery Management Council, and it can't be just a one and done, express frustration tonight. There's a lot of good people concerned about this resource, and I would just encourage everyone to work with the Fish and Wildlife Commission and bring your voice from the Mat-Su down to Anchorage here at the end of February, and to stay engaged with the commission. I do appreciate the commission's work, Fish and Game's work, and I think there's a lot of good people. We just got to identify what the problems are. We have some good ideas, and to stay focused on that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ted. Since we do have quite a few people online as well, if you would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. Or if you are on the phone line, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Do we have anybody online who would like to speak?
Thank you, Maya. And I do sincerely appreciate the comments, both online and what has been said. And we will now move forward to our meeting. And at this time, Maya, do you have anything as far as the staff would like to report?
I'll just be real quick here so you guys have time to have more of a conversation, but thank you all for being here. Just a reminder, as we're going around and having conversation, make sure you're turning on your mic, talking into the mic. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We do have a vacant seat on the Fish and Wildlife Commission right now. It's an assembly seat. And the mayor has recommended Bill Gamble to that seat. And we're anticipating that he would be appointed into that spot before our meeting in January. Like Commissioner Sykes mentioned a little bit ago, the information about the EEZ, we did post on the Fish and Wildlife Commission website that's on the main borough website. We do have information on there about the issues going on in the EEZ and the Fish and Wildlife Commission's position on that. There's also a direct link to look at that area and to look at the Federal Register and the proposed changes and comment directly there yourselves, just so you know. And as far as the packet goes today, it's pretty straightforward. The Fish and Wildlife Commission had prepared a series of questions for the department that they submitted. The department responded, so their responses are in red, and there are a couple of additional pieces in the packet and the supplemental materials that are just general fishing summaries from Fish and Game. So just so you know, that information is there.
Thanks, Maya. So at this time, we will turn it over to our guests from the Department of Fish and Game. And I do sincerely appreciate you guys and ladies being here. I do appreciate the job that you guys do. So Israel, how would you like to proceed?
I think we'll just probably follow your agenda. It looks like it was starting off with the commercial fishing notable highlights and then go from there, if that's okay with you.
All right. Go for it.
Again, I'm Colton Lipka. I'm the Upper Cook Inlet Area Management Biologist for commercial fisheries. For the 2023 season, we could characterize it as greater abundance of sockeye, low abundance of king and coho. So the preseason forecast for sockeye was 5.1 million salmon. We ended up with a Upper Cook Inlet total run of around 6.5, so about a quarter greater. As for harvest, along with that abundance, we had actually a above average harvest of sockeye, below average harvest of king, coho, and about an average harvest of pink. Specific to the Northern District, season could be characterized as fairly restrictive. The king directed fishery did not open as prescribed in the Northern District King Salmon Management Plan. Once we moved past the king directed fishery, restrictions were continued through the first week of July, following in-season indicators of the general low abundance and not projecting to meet the escapement goals. As we moved through July and we got towards the end of July, around July 20th, when we get into the Northern District Salmon Management Plan provisions that guide management of the Northern District, we then moved with net restrictions for several periods up through about that first to second week of August, at which point the coho run was not projecting to meet its escapement goals, and the evidence was there to then close the Northern District fishery for the remainder of the season. Thank you.
Thank you, Colton. And what we'll do is we'll go through the reports, and then when we'll get in that dialogue exchange between the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So, Sam?
I didn't hear anything about chums. Did I miss something?
Thank you. I did miss chums. So for Northern District, chum harvest was above average. So like a 20-year average for chum would be around 3,200 fish, and the Northern District caught 6,900 this last season.
Board, we're going to save questions till we get into the dialogue.
It's not a question. People to speak directly into the
of us that are a little hard hearing can hear what they're saying and understand it.
Sam, speak into the mic.
I'm going to try my best. Thanks, Howard. Yeah, so again, my name's Sam Ivy. I've been managing fisheries here in the valley for some time. I'll start with king salmon. We started the season, for the most part, closed across the area. The exceptions were on the Little Susitna River and on the Yentna River drainage, where we had achieved escapement goals in the year before and the year prior. We were expecting a small run of king salmon, and part of that came from our forecast for the Deshka River, which is, we've had a long-standing weir on that river for about 27 years now, since 95. So in any case, that's how we started. The Deshka stayed closed the whole season. When the Deshka closes by management plan, the Northern District directed king fishery closed. And despite being closed for the full season, we missed that BEG by a good margin. We count 3,741 kings, which was a historical low count for king salmon. And then on the Little Susitna River, we've operated a weir there for kings in the late 80s, early 90s, and then also since 2013 again down at the lower site. So this year was a challenge. We had a lot of water. We could tell that the king run was low. We were getting low reports. We were getting reports of a lot of small fish. Unfortunately, for the kings on the Little Sioux, they weren't in any hurry to move for a good portion of June, and we've seen that before on really cold water years. And then we got hit by a flood. But it was the right thing to do to close down that catch and release fishery by July 6th, and that's about as soon as we could justify getting it shut down. We also fly postseason surveys across the area. We count up to 24 streams by helicopter, and we have some individual goals, say like on Alexander Creek and East Forks of the Chalitna, down on West Cook Inlet, Chewett River, Theodore. Those goals were missed, and we weren't surprised by that. Those areas were closed for the duration of the season. And then we have some stock goals on the Talkeetna, the east side, Yentna stock. These 3 stock goals went into effect at the 2020 board meeting, and these goals were missed as well. And so that kind of wrapped up the king season. I'm sure you all were, experiencing some of the things we were seeing out there as well. We started off very conservative, and we couldn't have been much more conservative actually, but it was a poor king run, and we've been experiencing those since about 2008. I'm going to move on to sockeye now. Sockeye, of course, there was a lot of sockeye coming into the Susitna and the Kinnick this year. Start with Fish Creek. We're able to open a PU fishery for dip netting there for residents from July 15th to the end of July. If we can make a certain projection that we're going to be within the middle of the goal range. So we're able to do that. This is about the 6th year in a row we've done that. We don't have the harvest estimates right now because we'll get those after all the late permits are turned in, but we're expecting about a 20 to 30,000 sockeye harvest in that fishery. And then the escapement goal was right at the top of the goal range for that stock at 45,000 fish counted. And then when the PU fishery ended in July, in August 1, we were able to open and liberalize that to 6 sockeye daily. And then on the creek, I'll go through this, Pete. And so that was Fish Creek, and then Larson Creek had a good run this year, and we had better water conditions for moving fish. Like sometimes we don't. And there's a fishery up there on the Talkeetna, and it's one of the few in the valley. And the final count there was 38,000 fish. And then I just wanted to say something about our Susitna PU fishery. We've had that since 2020 in the lower river down between the lower Yentna River there down to the cutoff to Alexander. It's a fairly low effort fishery because of its remoteness. This year there's 6 days fished, and we had some positive reports for the most part on that one. Okay, I'll move on to coho salmon. Coho salmon are a boom bust species. We manage by what we see come back. There's really no forecasting coho. One good thing this year is that we received funding in the state budget to operate weirs that have been cut since 2019 because of budget problems, issues, and we were able to run the Deshka for the full season, operate our Jim Creek weir again that we hadn't run since 2015, get a full count for Fish Creek, and Little Sioux has always been funded. It's one of our larger coho fisheries around here. Unfortunately, we had all the water this year and we lost count on Little Susitna, and we did lose count on the Deshka as well. In fact, we lost the whole weir on the Deshka. It took a month to get that put back into place. So the only place that we had actually a complete count was at Fish Creek, and we made the goal there near the low end with a count of 1,500. We needed 1,200. It's a pretty small system. And we also ended up making the foot survey, the escapement goal for Jim Creek, which is based on a foot survey of McRoberts Creek. We ended up closing the coho salmon fisheries. It took a little while to realize the weakness of the run we were seeing. What we ended up seeing on the Little Sioux was what turned out to be kind of a weak and early run. And what I mean is they started coming in on time, which bumped up our projections up towards the upper end of the goal through about August 5th. And then it just started falling off, and it just turned into a weak run after that. And so by mid-August, we were throwing EOs out there to close things down or restricted them. And our large scale restriction was a 1 coho bag on the Susitna, and then we closed where we had more timely information for the Deshka and the Little Sioux. And so you saw those EOs go into effect for those species. Let's see here. Did I miss anything, Samantha? Samantha? No. Yeah, so it was unfortunate that we lost those complete counts on 2 of our bigger rivers. We did find out that we do have funding to operate those weirs again for the foreseeable future. So I did write in a budget that we would run a full season for Deshka and Little Sioux and Fish Creek next year. So we'll keep rolling. We got the Deshka rail back in place, and hopefully we'll put that right back in the water next May. That's all I can think of for now. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Sam. Israel, please, on EEZ.
Sure, I'll give you a brief overview on the EEZ. Basically, it's, as Jim explained, it's a section of a Cook Inlet kind of in the middle, south of Callaghan Island, and it runs to about Anchor Point. And through a lawsuit, and it's been about 4 or 5 years now, basically the federal government has taken control of that area and will be managing it. And I forwarded this morning, and that's where the commissioner was this evening, the North Pacific Commission meetings going on, and he was there this evening attending that today. And from that meeting, I sent a PowerPoint presentation to the commission here that kind of outlines the tentative plan, which is still open for comment period. So I encourage everyone that is interested in being involved to get online. You can just Google EEZ Cook Inlet, and it should come up, the Federal Registry, and there's a comment link there, and you can go right on and comment. But basically, the the feds are going to potentially take over management of it. And their plan right now is to basically mirror our state management of it and try to fit it into their layer of basically how they manage, which involves setting overall tax and catch limits and overfishing levels. They don't manage by escapement goals and abundance like we do. So it's a much different management regime. So basically what they're going to try to do is kind of copy what we've done and allow openings starting, the third Monday in June or June 19th, whichever is later, and start like a Monday and a Thursday 12-hour openers and prosecute it that way. Their goal seems to be is to not allow any more catch than historic levels. And if the TAC is met, they'll shut it down early. They're very cognizant of the mixed stock fishery, and they're very cognizant, and they know about, passing fish north. There's also, feeding the belugas. There's a Cook Inlet beluga management plan that the feds are very cognizant of. So they're not just going to blow it wide open and fish without repercussions. So they're cognizant of that. They're just trying to kind of fit our management scheme into their layer of management, which is much different than ours. So it is going to be difficult for them to do it. On the sport fish end of it, they call it a recreation fishery in the EEZ. There's not a lot of sport fishing effort there to begin with, but once again, on that end of it, they're going to mirror basically our regulations in that section of Cook Inlet. And in both fisheries, the commercial and the recreation or sport end, there's going to be no like double dipping. You can't harvest like a federal limit and a state limit or anything like that. So that's the gist of it. It's a very complicated issue, and I would encourage people to go to the council or put a comment in there.
Thank you, Israel. So at this time, it'll be the opportunity for the Fish and Wildlife Commission and the department to exchange questions and answers and information. So I would like to open it up at this time for Fish and Wildlife Commission members or State of Alaska. Kendra, please.
Yeah, first, because the EEZ economic zone in the middle of Cook Inlet is a really complicated issue, I'd encourage people to go to the Fish and Wildlife Commission page on the borough website, and there's a summary of some of that and some maps that might help clarify it before you go whole hog to the council. And then I had a question for Sam. With some of the high water that we're seeing, are you expecting that that's going to affect some of the reds that fish have been laying their eggs on? And could that be affecting returns in later years when you get high water?
Yeah, that's a really great question because, there's always theorized that some of the low king runs we saw in the early 90s was related to the large floods that we got in 86. And so, we've had large floods in 06, 2012. This year we flooded. It wasn't as large. So it really depends on the timing of the flood and the duration, but definitely you can see flood effects. I would say though, however, that I do think that some of these really warm, dry years, low water years can have an equally or more profound effect on salmon production. The extreme case is what we saw in 2019, which, I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen a high pressure system like that come in and just stay. And of course our coho salmon did, a lot of them, not all of them, but did come off of that run. And then also, we saw a pretty warm water year that killed a lot of adult salmon in 2015 as well. Mostly you see that in the lower gradient streams that are more prone to warming, like the Deshka River or Cottonwood or Wasilla or Jim Creeks. We were operating on a weir on Jim Creek in 2015, and there was a lot of adult die-off there. So yeah, but floods and some warm water, Kendra.
So I had a follow-up question on that. There are some nonprofits around South Central and the Copper River area that are putting in temperature loggers to log temperature every hour or every 15 minutes or so. And I think some of the hope there is to find some of the cold water areas. And is that anything that Fish and Game is looking at, either supporting that effort or looking at finding some of the cold water refuge areas themselves and see what could be done to protect those in some way, keep it open for the fish to stay in those areas?
Did you ask a question? Yeah, I will recognize there is a lot of work being done out there by partnership groups. And one of them is a collaboration of several groups, including the Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Game for doing a lot of work in places like the Big Lake drainage and the Deshka River drainage. And part of that is looking at cold water areas, seepages, these places like the Deshka River that have muskeg seepages and upwelling that salmon use when adults travel up the river and they nose into them when it's real warm or low. Deshka's prime example of that, where you can see delayed migration for a long time until you get a little precipitation into the system and it prompts the fish to move. And then, that's when you go fishing. So yeah, it's there's some good work being done out there with that, and they are mapping those cold water areas. And some of the thought is coming down that a system such as the Deshka could have a buffering effect as the flow goes downstream and the buildup of cold water. You'd think that a stream would get warmer and warmer as you move downriver, but that's not necessarily the case. So we are learning some more things about salmon. I do think that that's important work because we are experiencing warmer water temperatures in river in these recent years.
Thank you. I have a question, and probably between Colton and Israel. It's on the EEZ. And Israel, you made the comment that North Pacific Fishery Management Council is going to manage that mirrors the state. And my concern is, particularly when you move into July, we rarely saw 2 12-hour periods in the EEZ area. It was a tendency to pull the fleet inshore. And so we're developing our comments on that fact that we're actually increasing time in the federal waters with the 2 12-hour periods. And I'd sort of like to know what the department feels about that.
I'm not sure I can say how we feel about it, but what you said would be correct. Currently in the Central District Gillnet Fishery Management Plan, when you get to that second half of July, there's only one 12-hour period a week that occurs in what we call Area 1. So the area south of Cowgan Island, out in the middle. Sorry, I'm really bad at mics. There's only one 12-hour period in that second half of July where they're allowed to fish out in the middle. Otherwise, they get pulled into the corridors, the expanded Kasilof and Kenai sections.
Yeah, just a little follow-up on that. How they set the TAC is very important when it comes to that, because depending on how they set the TAC, after 2 openings, the TAC could be filled. But yeah, we are very cognizant of that. I believe it's July 15th, time frame where the Board of Fish has recognized that that's the corridor to pass fish north. So the council recognizes that numerous times in their literature.
Thank you. The other concern I have is the ability for the feds to react in season. And as you guys know, I have a federal background. And the response time, from my experience, is not 1 to 4 days. It's much larger than that. And so my concern would be, how can they respond in a timely manner to prevent overfishing?
That's a great question, and I believe we in the department, that's an unknown to us too at this time. They lay it out there, but are they going to be able to do that? So that would be a good comment to add in to them, concerns about timely management. Because as we manage by the state, Colton doesn't get weekends off all summer long. He's connected to his cell phone, and yeah, it's very real-time management.
Other questions? Go ahead, Larry.
It relates to some of the stuff we've heard from the public this afternoon. How many of you are familiar with this EEZ issue? You probably never even heard that word before, and it has the potential to have a major, major negative impact on the salmon that are headed in this area. You realize that we're in a funnel-shaped marine water body that's 125 miles long, and this EEZ waters, that's the beginning of it. And we're talking, you just heard from the staff say, it could be doubling. That's what they're suggesting, doubling the number of days you fish in that EEZ waters, which are the waters where the stocks are all mixed together, the strong stocks, the numerous stocks, the weak stocks, and they have almost no capabilities to manage. And so this has a potential to just raising real havoc to the issues that you've been talking about today, the weak runs we've got. And it's an issue that we need to have public input from, because you're going to get a lot of public input from those that are involved in this drift fishery that fishes at EEZ water. So that's a real important issue. Another thing I like to mention is that for a lot of you, a lot of the information that we're hearing tonight are in packets that are in the back room or on the Mat-Su Burrows website. Real easy to get. You just dial up Mat-Su Burrow, go to government, and go to the boards and commissions, and you'll have all this information we've been talking about. Things that we're talking about here, the EEZ questions and exactly what it's all about. It's there in real simple language. Information we heard from escapements and stuff like that, or how abundant was the chum salmon harvest. A lot of that's in these packets right there, that type of information that can help you become better familiar with the issues that you brought up here. And it's certainly, we as your commission are very aware of the declining salmon runs in this area. I personally have been involved in the fishing industry and various aspects of it since 1960. And I've seen changes, mass changes, things like participation. We used to have 400,000 plus angler days. That's the days of participation here. That's dropped to less than half of that now. I think the last year we got was something like 160,000. So yes, there's been a major impact on the economy, on the social reasons people live here, and we're very much aware of it. If we're going to make changes in that sort of stuff, it's going to take you folks to get involved in it. It takes commissions like this can try to represent your views, and we do try to do that at regulatory meetings such as the Board of Fish, the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, or in buildings like here at the Assembly or Habitat Protection and things like that. We're very active in doing that. But if you want to make major changes, things that you don't see or feel are right, you've got to get involved as groups and individuals. And that means go to meetings like this, go to the Assembly meetings, contact your legislators. You heard about changes from some of the weirs. The funding disappeared on one of the cornerstones, the backbones of fisheries management, is to be able to count your escapement. We're losing that abilities. And you heard Sam just tell you that we got several of these weir counting areas back again. How did that happen? Well, it happened from groups such as this that went to the legislature to say, we have got to have that kind of money. We're requesting again, a group such as this, $2.5 million to go into fishery issues. You've complained a lot about lack of enforcement. Well, how do you correct that? You go to public safety and you say, hey, we need to make some changes here. And go to your legislators, we need to get additional funding. So what I'm encouraging to do in a rambling sort of way is to get involved like you're doing tonight at groups such as this, assembly meetings, your legislative hearings, and this sort of thing, and you will be able to make changes. You certainly can change. your Fish and Wildlife and Fish and Game are responsible to you folks, and they do listen to you. And they will listen to you, but you just can't come out and vent your frustrations at one meeting like this and let it go. Say, we did it. You've got to be involved in it. And so that's my encouragement, to stay involved. Don't just let this be an issue at this point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Howard, I'm going to go to our chair first, then you're next. Go ahead, Andy.
Try and stay within a certain catch, but that they have a total allowable catch limit for different species. But the big change that I think would occur is even now in the Mat-Su area, northern Cook Inlet, our runs seem to be getting later. And part of that is because of early intercepts down in the central district. But if we double the fishing time starting July 15th in the EEZ area, what I think would happen is the fish coming to the valley would be much later. Even so, when you double that fishing time, I think all that would happen was that the commercial harvest would happen earlier, and you would be focusing it on the early part of the run. And at some point, if you had a decent run of fish, you would hit the catch limit, but the impact would be on that early portion of the run, and the impact to people in the northern Cook Inlet would be you'd have a much more truncated run. Sport fisheries and commercial fisheries, personal use fisheries, all fisheries benefit from having a full season of opportunity. And I guess I just asked Israel, does the department see that same issue?
Of the run timing, is that what you're talking about, Andy?
What I was saying is if the federal EEZ is fished, if they double the time at the start of the year, I think what's going to happen is they'll fish right till they catch the limit, and then they'll be closed. But there should likely then be quite a devastating factor on that early return of fish coming north. And I'm just asking, does the department recognize that that's the likely thing that would happen is that the early portion of the run would just be cut off considerably more?
Colton, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, if I've understood your question there, Andy. So in this hypothetical, if you did focus harvest effort early in the season as an annual trend, then you could see specific effects of that harvest on certain stocks that would have run timing that coincided when that harvest took place. So if we relate this to sockeye, so we've done genetic studies in the past where we have a general idea of when northern bound Susitna stocks move through the lower part of Upper Cook Inlet. That generally occurs sometime around July 10th to the 13th. We start to see that percentage of harvest, specifically in the drift fleet, go up. And this is where some of the provisions that are in the current drift management plan have been put in place to provide more opportunity for those fish to move north. So by changing that, then yes, you could then harvest a higher proportion of those northern bound stocks. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's exactly right, Colton. That's what I think the effect would be. And I don't think it would just be sockeye, but I think sockeye, Susitna sockeye would probably be the most significant part of it.
Howard?
Yeah, I'm going to go in a little bit different direction based on the questions we submitted to the department. although I'm not sure, is anybody from the department here? Can you speak to the access situation in any depth? Access. You got to have fish if you're going to go fishing, but then you got to be able to get to the water to catch the fish. Getting to the water is the access part, boat ramps, trails, rights of way, that sort of thing. And that's what I did when I worked for the department, was worked in the access program. And one of the questions to the department was that how are they going to staff the Little Sioux Public Use Facility and Susitna Landing? Historically, Susitna Landing was operated under contract by a private concession operation. And also historically, Fish and Game contracted with the Department of Natural Resources state parks, and the state parks people operated Little Sioux. Little Sioux, they had armed rangers fairly regularly on site. They weren't always there, but they were available on call. They patrolled the river. They did a lot of stuff as far as all of this problem with enforcement that we're hearing about. Sioux Landing was a little bit different. Their access was basically to state troopers, the brown shirt guys. And at least at the time when I was involved, the brown shirts responded pretty well. Not always, but as best as they could, because there's only a handful of these guys. And as the borough likes to say, in an area the size of West Virginia, we've got maybe 8 or 10 brown shirt enforcement guys in this area. Excuse me. And but the concessionaire at Sioux Landing lived on site 24/7. He was there. Interesting guy. I'm not going to get into details, but I have personal knowledge of at least twice he had to go down into the campground carrying his .44 Magnum revolver to kind of quell some disturbances that were going on between people. He actually threw people out of the campground, and they were forbidden to ever come back because of behavior and stuff. And the department is proposing, it looks like from the answer, one person who will spend part of his time at Sioux Landing and part of his time at Little Sioux, and probably be involved in several other access projects. And I'm just wondering how well the department thinks that's going to work in light of all of the poaching that we see or hear going on, and then just people being people. And somebody decides they got to listen to hard rock at 3 o'clock in the morning in the campground. That is not something that the other campers appreciate. And I'm just curious if the department has an answer to what they expect or what they're looking for. And I'd like to know why they're shifting away. I can guess. I'm assuming it's money. But as these guys have pointed out very obviously, and I also have personal knowledge in dealing with brown shirts. If you've got a brown shirt standing up on a ridge, watching a whole section of river, and he's next to his truck, and he's obvious to everybody out there, you won't find anybody doing anything wrong at all. As soon as he gets in his truck and leaves, out come the snagging hooks and everything else. So the enforcement presence is vital. And if they're cutting back from a permanent full-time or a permanent live-on-site guy, even though he's not deputized at Sioux Landing, and they didn't have live-on-site people down at Little Sioux, but they had a fairly extensive staff of technicians and what do they call them? Park ranger assistants. I don't know what they called them. And park rangers that were patrolling the area. It helped keep a lid on things. They didn't catch everything, but they helped to keep a lid on it. I'm just curious how the department foresees their proposed plan working.
Well, Howard, yeah, I could try to expand on that a little bit. I mean, I'm not the right staff to do it that we don't have here, but for various reasons, I think that we have moved away from concessionaires for some issues that we've had in the recent past with that process. But I think it is like a work it's evolving. I don't think that we're where we want to go yet with it, but we are looking at in the interim, moving to campground hosts. These are volunteer, so that it's not just our one technician trying to run around and do, that person is very capable of doing the maintenance, but that's about it, So, yeah, we're looking at more online ways to pay for things at these sites. But yeah, all I can say, it's a work in process, and yeah, there's the answer for number 10 there that explains it more or less, but that's about all I can say about it that I know about.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I'm kind of asking a question that I thought I had, and I think I have a pretty good feel for the answer to already, but it carries more weight if you guys say it than if I say it. But yeah, I'm sure money is part of it, and some of this other stuff. But the point I also want to make too is we've been talking biology the whole night, short of this question. And the one thing, the department has limited ability to manage animal populations in any way, shape, or form. Sorry, I'm diabetic and my alarm is going off for low blood sugar. I'm just trying to get things shut down here. But the thing that they can actually manage the best is people. And that's why I'm asking about how they're looking to manage these campground areas and stuff. And just sort of point out that, and this is just a comment and I'll make it short. We're talking about all the poaching and how there's no fish and there's no moose and on and on and on. And people that were here 20 years ago have seen major changes downward. The population in Alaska has grown significantly. I came up here in the mid 70s and it's changed significantly since I've been here. The demand is there for the fish, for the moose, for the bears, but the populations are relatively static. We only have so much habitat, and that can only support so many animals. And if you've got X number of animals and you've got Y number of hunters, and 10 years later you've got twice Y number of hunters, and 10 years later you got 3 times Y number of hunters, but you still just got excuse me, X animals, then you're one way to manage it is either a lottery or a drawing or a restriction. You have to put in every year to get your king salmon tag. And if you're not drawn for the tag, you don't get to go kingfishing. That's an option. It's not, nobody likes it. Nobody wants to go there. Same applies to moose or anything else. When, as Jim, I think, made the comment earlier, the fisheries in Cook Inlet are fully allocated, but there's a larger and larger demand every year. So you still have to start controlling the people who are using it as much as try and improve the biology. And thanks, Pete. I'll be quiet.
I want to weigh in on that whole moose and caribou thing you said there. The number has gotten bigger with people in Alaska, but if Fish and Game is trying to manage all this the right way, why has the winter hunt been open when they knew numbers were declining for the Nelchina herd that's currently shut down and we don't know when it's going to reopen? Why is that winter hunt open when all those cows are pregnant with calves in them? And the cow moose, I'm running a trap line 80 to 100 miles, and what I used to see 50, 60 moose, I'm seeing like 2 moose. And you guys have depleted the breeding cows. And you'll go to Palmer office and talk to them, and they'll say, hey, we did aerial survey. Population's good. Moose population is not good. But that's on a different topic. We're
Thank you. Go ahead, Gabe, and then I'll go to you, Jim.
I was just kind of curious as far as the technology that's being used up Lake Creek for fish counting. Is that negatively affected the same way as the typical weirs that we see on the Deshka and the Little Sioux when flooding events happen?
Yeah, if I understand your question right, is Lake Creek any different than any other system?
As far as the technology you guys were implementing up there the last couple of years, is it shut down in a flooding event in the same way that the Deshka and the Little Sioux has been like this past year?
The one good thing about running a sonar is that we have a little bit more leeway in high water events than a lot of times we have on a weir. There's some systems that are just not wearable because they're too high gradient and they're susceptible to flash flooding. And that's kind of the case at Lake Creek. They can run a sockeye weir up by the lake, but that's fairly, that's right outside the lake. Not saying we couldn't run a weir on Lake Creek. It probably would not work out as well as what we're doing now. In fact, I can just say it wouldn't. I don't think it would work. The sonar does allow us, the water levels to go up and down because there's less gear to keep in the water. And we can shoot that beam across the river where we have it up there above Bolchitna axis and do pretty well. I have the guy running the program behind me, Nick, but we've only had that project in the water for 2 years now, and we feel like we have gotten a pretty good count on the kings in the last 2 years, despite water fluctuations. So we're hopeful. That was one thing I always wanted to see, was a stock assessment project on Lake Creek, because it's one of the larger producers of king salmon on the Yentna drainage. And we already had a long running program on the Deshka that we could base a lot of management on, but we knew that Deshka less and less over the years was telling the full story across the whole Susitna drainage, because these stocks are all, Lake Creek comes out of the Alaska range. It's a lot different system than the Talkeetna, coming out of the Talkeetna or the short, fast moving, east side streams out of the Talkeetnas across the Parks Highway. Every unit of management's a little bit different. And so we refer to these as stocks based on geography and then, and then the habitat that they're produced in. But yeah, it's that's a good program up there. And I think that air sonar's hopefully going to do us well, and hopefully we can keep that project funded to keep it rolling. Because anyway, I went on beyond what you said, so apologize for that.
No, that was good. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Jim, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to follow up on a comment that Director Payton made, I believe, about the personal use fishery on Fish Creek and how that relates to what is caught lower in the inlet. As was mentioned, we've had the personal use fishery on Fish Creek open 6 years in a row. That is unprecedented in recent times. And I think it's a pretty direct correlation to the institution of the corridor in 2015, the conservation corridor, because more fish have made it north. And so it relates to what can we learn about the corridor. In 2015, they started a research project where they had 5 positions of test fisheries from the rips in between Calgon Island and the eastern inlet and all the way to the nearshore fishery. And they test fisheries showed that where the fish were mostly headed north, in which rips. And it seems to me that data needs to be completed and updated every year, because it's a valuable indication of our fish, in addition to any genetic information that we may get. Before they get to those rips, however, I would like to ask, and I don't know, I'm not either a commercial fisherman or a biologist, are there some hot spots or rips in the central districts that are heavily fished by the commercial fishery that could also be subjects of test fisheries, so we could try and figure out what is actually being caught in the mixed stock fishery in Area 1 south of Calgon Island?
So the current test fishery that takes place, the offshore test fishery, is pretty centralized in lower Upper Cook Inlet. From that, we do take some sampling and genetics, and we also sample the full commercial fleet across the season and run annual genetic stock composition to get relative proportions and estimates of overall harvest from the various stocks that we've been able to identify as genetically distinct. As far as if there are specific other areas to which we would institute another test fishery, we don't have any plans to do that at the time right now. I could see the value that came from the upper test fishery while it was in the water, but at this time we don't have any plans to institute that project again.
As a follow-up to that, I would just like to note that Director Payton mentioned the TAC, the total allowable catch, which is what the federal fishery says they're going to use. Please take a look at what is being proposed. They say that they're going to average the average minimum year, the lowest minimum 3 years, and the highest average maximum years, and choose a number in the middle based on previous years. It does not look to me like the federal government is actually very interested in doing anything that is of present value. And so we find ourselves here in the Northern District is the amount of data that is gathered in the commercial fishery and on the east side and in the Kenai rivers is real time. They make real decisions. They make emergency openings and closings, but we do not have any kind of commensurate real-time data during our fishing season. We have the weirs, and we are grateful that those are being restored, but that's not all we need in order to fully understand what we can actually do. What are the opportunities to restore our great fisheries that we do, some of us remember from the early 80s, where there were so many fish it looked like you could walk across them at Alexander Creek.
Mr. Sykes, why don't we find a baseline? What's actually returning that's an original species versus what's thrown into the inlet as a commercial feeder species?
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. I have a question for you, Sam. When you said for 2024, we're going to have full funding for Deshka and Little Sioux, or full season is what you said. To what's the length of that? How far into August does that go?
Yeah, Pete. So for the Deshka River, we're winding it. Well, we're pretty much run till mid-September or so, and then get our weir out of the water. And then Little Sioux, same story. We're usually out by mid-September. Fish Creek, Jim Creek have a little later run timing. We usually go to the end of September on those systems. So every system is a little bit different. For the most part, run timing is pretty close though. But yeah, that was the burden of budget cuts here a little while back, where we cut our Deshka program at 50% of the way through the coho run, August 15th. You know, we could get a complete king salmon count because you have some late arrivals from king salmon into August. But yeah, it'll make a big difference. Deshka is really a tough one to get a complete count all the time because it does flood on us. And Little Sioux in recent years has really been a problem with flooding for both species. But we put them in the water. Right now, we're looking at on Little Sioux to modify things a bit. We're looking at maybe moving the weir upstream a little further, looking for a better place. And we're also thinking about a sonar in the lower river. We're kind of exploring that for king salmon. So it's kind of like we're seeing what's working and what's not. And to make the project the most bang for the buck, we got to keep it in the water and actually get a count and work against Mother Nature a bit. So, but yeah, those full season funding is going to be really big, and I'm glad to see it's going to keep rolling.
That's good news. Appreciate it, Sam. Andy, please.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, for bringing up the weird subject. And Fish and Game mentioned that they were looking at wanting to do a mark recapture study on the Susitna sockeye again, like they've done in the past, and then monitoring them at all three of the Susitna weir sites, Shalatna, Judd, and Larson. So, Colton, is there some kind of figure on how much that might cost? And then in addition, how soon do you think we could get something like that up and going again?
Andy, I don't have a specific cost figure for what it would take to get that project in. I can look into that for you, though, and we can get that in an email to you and the commission. As far as how long it would take to implement, once funding was provided, as far as I know, we already have the operational plans and procedures for those projects, so we should be able to move fairly quickly.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And I think we definitely would like to see the figure for how much that would cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Gabe? No? Okay.
This is more of a comment than a question again, but it's to help inform the public of a source of information that covers a lot of the things we've been talking about this evening, weirs to EEZ to the corridor. Okay. It's a booklet that's going to be coming out within a week or so. And it contains all types of information, but it's not something highly scientific that's difficult to read if you're not a scientist. It's something that's written in a layman's language. And it's intended to use at the Board of Fish to help inform the Board of Fish on regulations that we support or regulations that we don't support. It also is going to be used at the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council in terms of the EEZ zone, which you've heard that has potential to change things a lot. And it's also a document that just helps the average person understand better in a layman's language some of the issues, all the issues we've been talking about basically here. It also helps us, it comes from this commission, to try to influence the regulations and the way that the Department of Fish and Game reacts. You've heard about the conservation corridor, which is a big strip you'll see in a picture in this booklet. That largely has come about because of work that this commission has done over the last 10 or 15 years. It's changed the way we manage the commercial fishery in Cook Inlet substantially to the betterment, we believe, to all the different salmon runs in Cook Inlet. So anyhow, it's a document that you may wish to get your hands on and use it to then inform regulatory bodies or the Department of Fish and Game on your views with a little bit more background information to do so in a reasonable and responsible manner. So we've still got some fine print to correct on this thing and change a little bit because we've been working on it the last several weeks. But it's a document that will soon be put out by the borough through this Fish and Wildlife Planning Commission.
Thank you, Larry. And so at this time, I'm going to give each commission member an opportunity to ask one more question. since we're supposed to try to wrap this up in 2 hours. So Howard, you're first and short.
Yeah. Well, it's a question. I'm not sure who from the department would want to field it. It may take a couple of you. The Commercial Fisheries Division every year issues a forecast on the run strength returning to Cook Inlet. Predominantly, my understanding, predominantly sockeye is what it's based on, because the management plan for commercial fishing in Cook Inlet is focused on Kenai sockeye. That's the center of the attention. And I was just looking in their Upper Cook Inlet commercial salmon fishery season summary. The 2023 Upper Cook Inlet sockeye salmon total run of 6.5 million fish was 27% greater than the preseason forecast. In years past, they've been off by as much as 100%. Other years, they're spot on. What they called for is what actually showed up. And so my question is basically, is the department trying to do anything to refine their forecasting to make it a little more realistic, bring the sideboards from 100% off down to maybe 30% off on average? Because the whole early commercial fishing is based on the forecast until they get enough run back in that they can start adjusting numbers.
Howard, yes, we are continually trying to make our forecast better. Forecasting is a difficult thing to do. And a general rule of thumb, a forecast will work best on normal years and be off more on abnormal years. So much of that can be dependent. But we are continually going through our model selection process, updating to the most current scientific information to try to make these forecasts as accurate as possible.
Kendra, please.
Yeah, this is kind of related to that question. Question number 7 that we asked Fish and Game was about getting a stock estimate for the Northern Cook Inlet coho salmon. And the answer was that we haven't had stock assessments. We only had them from 2013 to 2016. And I wondered, what would it take to get the stock assessments? Is there an expectation that what is being caught that's headed in the Northern Cook Inlet area might be different from what's in 2016? Is it worth trying to go after stock assessments? And would that potentially help forecasts as well?
For clarification, that was on question 7 for coho. Okay. So for what it would take to make it happen, that is a fiscal question. If the money was made available, then the department could implement that. That's a matter of collecting coho samples and then running them through the gene lab to get stock-specific estimates. It's a bit more complicated because you do have to meet certain levels of sampling to generate those estimates to certain levels of clarity. Would that help with coho forecast? We don't really do coho forecast because they are notoriously difficult to do so. As Sam said earlier, they're very boom and bust species. Did I cover all your points there?
Thank you, Colton. Larry, do you have a question?
I just want to repeat some of the comments you had earlier about thanking Fish and Game for attending this meeting and responding to all the questions that we raised right here this evening, and responding to all the questions that we have written in. And I know that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of good information there made available to the public for you folks in the audience because of all the time and effort they put into it. So thank you.
So any more questions? Andy, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I will ask one, and that is in regards to coho salmon. Coho salmon right now are the most important salmon species for the in-river sport fisheries. And a lot of the frustration, I think we heard earlier in this meeting, was because of the poor coho salmon. And for the last 3 years, we've had 4 coho salmon harvests in the in-river sport fisheries. So I guess the question that I'd like to ask is there some way we could shoot toward meeting the midpoint of those coho goals instead of just, well, we'll try and hit the bottom, and if we're not hitting, when we have a shortage, we'll start closing it. I think we need to try and shoot for the midpoint. I'd ask the department, is there's some way something we can do to influence shooting for the midpoint of all of our coho goals that are so important to in-river users?
Yeah, Andy, thanks. Our escapement goals, a lot of them, all of them for coho are built upon this percentile approach where we take years of data and rank it and trim off the tails to come up with a range of escapements that is according to all the data we've gathered over the years, would be a good proxy for hitting maximum sustained yield if we manage within that range. It can be anywhere in that range. And so in large part, that's why we say hitting anywhere within the range is good. You don't want to be always hitting at the bottom, and you don't want to just be managing for the bottom of the goal. Typically that doesn't happen though. And a lot of times we don't have the fishing power to make that happen. So we do have an escapement goal we manage for, and we're also, when we get into a season, we're having a shortage early in the season, we have a little bit more time to work with. So we have an idea of what the harvest might look like on a weaker run year, and then we can make an adjustment, maybe a restriction if it's going to be coming in on the weak side. It's early in the season, it's like a step down typically. Later in the season, you don't have as much wiggle room. So you could see later in the season a late season decision where it might look more like, yeah, we're managing for the low end because looks like we're not going to make it, and then at the last minute we throw EO out. That EO has a lot more power if we can do it a little bit earlier. It's just you have to recognize it. So, we use our weir counts the best we can, and sometimes that's confounded by flooding or when fish don't want to move because it's too warm out. So typically we are hitting around in the range. Sometimes it's at the top, sometimes at the bottom, sometimes in the middle, but there's nothing that says the middle of the goal range is exactly where you need to be all the time. But you're right. We want to be thinking about hitting in the goal. And we all know that the further up in the goal that you are, the better the fishing is, right? And I think that's partly where your question comes from.
I think Sam pretty much nailed that as far as the department's main objective to be within the escapement goal, and just keeping in the context of, for instance, in some of these fisheries, how early in the season we need to make decisions versus how much information we may have at the time. But otherwise, I would just encourage folks that would like to see changes in management to participate in the Board of Fish process. Have to throw at least one plug in for that since it's coming up. So, thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get them out as soon as possible. Our goal is to try to get them out for the Susitna by January 1. We're still doing forecasts on some things and, deciding how we're going to approach it. So I'd like to address some of the talking points I heard earlier. So this is an excellent venue. I've kind of taken it upon myself as director when I came in to kind of follow this model, and we hosted other town halls. We did one in Homer, one in Soldotna, and one in, we're going to do one in Anchorage, because communicating to the public is really important to me. Believe it or not, I've been on this side of the table much more. I've seen my dad get thrown out of these meetings, screaming and pointing in people's faces like myself. So yes, I am Fish and Game, but I've been on your side of the table many years, and I still am. We're all just fishermen here, and we love this resource. And I understand the venting and the frustration, and it is hard to take, but I get where you guys are coming from. I would like to highlight some of the positives, though. In the early 2000s, we saw some of the largest king runs ever in the history of the valley. No one's mentioned that. Ben fished them, I fished them, and now we're seeing some of the lowest. So we've seen the two extremes, and that's difficult, right? When you see the very high to the very low, and we're in a very low right now. It was mentioned we're not doing our jobs that well. Controlling Mother Nature is a very difficult job, right? We control people well, and we don't control Mother Nature that well. We don't even understand Mother Nature that well to a lot of extent. So we are putting efforts into understanding the ocean better. We have Katie Howard is doing the ocean ecology program. That's on Facebook, so trying to understand that. You mentioned proactive things, that's one of them. Like the ARIS project in Lake Creek, that's a proactive management thing. Like a lot of our aerial assessment is, after the fact assessment, and we want to be more proactive in real-time assessment. So the ARIS project is one of those. Our Sportfish hatchery for kings, we enhance kings and we provide that opportunity, and we're still providing that opportunity in low abundance, and we're doing everything we can there. It's very expensive to do. But we realize it provides a yield and takes pressure off the wild stock. So we're continuing to do that. The kings can come back as fast as they left, right? Salmon are a unique thing with the different age classes. So they went down fast, therefore they can come back fast too. So I still hold hope for that. We're just seeing a small snapshot in time, and yeah, we're in a low abundance, so that's frustrating. Someone asked, who creates these management plans? Well, the question is, you do. You create them through the Board of Fish process. We don't create the management plans. As Larry alluded to, it might feel good to come here and vent your frustrations, but you need to continue it through the Board of Fish process. And we've seen wins through the Board of Fish process, through this committee and through stakeholders like you going to it. Susitna sockeye is a huge win that no one acknowledged here tonight. It used to be a stock yield concern. It isn't anymore through proactive management. And now we actually have a new fishery on the Big Sioux because of it. That's a big win. So, there's some negatives, but I'd like to, highlight the positives. Some of the challenges we're having, mentioned enforcement. I just talked to the troopers. They're vacant 70 positions right now. We're vacant multiple positions. Retention and recruitment's a big deal, and you can throw money at it, but if you can't hire someone, it doesn't do you any good. So those are some of the challenges. I'm honored to be in this position. I'm lifelong Alaskan. I don't like to see the Kings where they are either, but I'm hopeful they'll come back, and it's going to take involvement like you through the Board of Fish process and the council process to help with us. We just follow what the people do. We're not making up the rules and regulations. We're implementing the rules and regulations that you, the people, have made through the Board of Fish processes, which is very unique to Alaska only. We're lucky to have the Constitution we do and the board, the process that we do, however flawed, but you're the holders of the resource. We manage it for you through the Board of Fish process. So I'd encourage you to keep going to meetings, no matter how frustrating, but that's how things get done.
Thank you, Israel. That's a great segue into final comments. And I'd like to, Larry had some comments. Is there any final comments that the commissioners would like to make? Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank Commercial Fish and Sport Fish and Director who came tonight on behalf of the Commissioner. It's the questions that we asked I believe it's useful to us and the public. Please feel free to get this information off the website, and if you have additional follow-ups, feel free to contact directly, because this exchange has become more of a discussion, and I can tell you in years past it was a lot more hostile. And we've tried to focus on the science and what we can do and have a discussion about it rather than shouting at each other. And so once again, I appreciate you very deeply, and the weirs, like the weirs are great. I hope we can find somebody to run them. And I just will ask, leave one question hanging in the air. The federal EEZ overtakes management of most of what is in what they call the Kenai and the Kasilof sections, where the commercial fishermen fleet had to go to when there was a lot of northern bound salmon. And most of that is now going to be under federal management. And so I'd really like to know if the state and the federal government are going to work together, or how we can preserve or enhance or better get data to make sure the corridor is going to continue to work, because I believe it's been a critical element in trying to restore what we've lost. And I just don't want to lose that. So thanks for all of your efforts, and thanks to the public for coming out tonight. This is a much larger crowd than we usually get. Please keep it up.
Sir, before we final comments,
Being zeroed out on
just please make it quick.
So for those of you that don't know, I'm Representative Kevin McCabe. I'm on the Fisheries Commission, on the Pacific States Fisheries Management Commission. I could probably talk loud enough. But I'm on the Fisheries Committee in the House, and if you guys ever have issues, I'm happy to help. Israel knows me. The commissioner knows me. Israel said it exactly right. You guys manage the fisheries. You guys manage it through the Fisheries Management Council. You do, but you have to show up. I can't count the number of committee hearings I had this last session where I was the only guy there talking about sport fish. I was the only guy there talking about South Central fish. I was the only guy there talking about Cook Inlet fish. The only one. These were well noticed. Say that again. I get it, but my point is you guys are here right now, and that's great. That's awesome. If we can continue this, if you can show up in Anchorage at the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council and show them your professional ire, like you have your passion, if you will, that'd be great. If you keep track of me, I always notice when there's fisheries meetings that concern my district, and all of these rivers, the Deshka, the Little Sioux, the Big Sioux, Alexander Creek, they're all in my district. I'm interested. I want to help. You can email me. I can keep you informed, and I would really like to have public testimony from South Central guys, from fishermen, from guides. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other commissioner?
I'll go ahead with one. I just want to thank the public for coming out. I've kind of started in the same position you guys are in, and I have a 6 and a 4-year-old child of my own, my wife and I've realized that the only way to really make a difference is to get as involved as you can. And I know that the time you guys took out of here tonight it's time in your evening. You could be home, you could be with your kids, your wife, and I appreciate you guys for coming. And thank you to Fish and Game for putting that summary together and showing up and answering questions from everybody. I appreciate it.
Andy, do you have any final comments?
I feel like we have better representation than we've had in quite a while. The last board go round, we had pretty good representation with Israel on there, but John Wood is there. We have 3 people on the board that are concerned about what's going on right now in the Matsu Valley. And you only need 4 votes to get some changes made. So I'd encourage the public to come out to the Board of Fisheries. There will be some key days. You don't have to be to the meeting on all days. And I would encourage the public, if you do come out, to talk to some of the board members about your issues, not just public testimony, but during the breaks. Oftentimes, a one-on-one conversation that you have more time to talk about your issues. So anyway, thank you everybody for showing up and participating.
Go ahead, Israel.
One more thing about the board process. It might seem scary at first if you've never done it, but staff is here to help you. You know, grab a mentor. There's always someone at the board meeting that's willing to help you and show you the ropes. You can call any of your area managers or, you know, me directly, or email me if you want any more information on it. It is a little intimidating at first, but, you know, we're here to help you navigate the process. We work for you. And it's an awesome process, but you know, you only get out of it what you put in.
Well, as we wrap up, I'd like to remind my Fish and Wildlife Commission members, our next meeting is next Thursday. And it's not at 4, it's at 2 o'clock. So we'll be here. And I'm focusing the agenda on 2 items. And so I'd like to have your comments to me on your EEZ by Wednesday morning. I've already received some comments. The goal is Maya and I will finalize a draft so that we have a document to discuss during the meeting. And the other topic we want to put a lot of attention to is the booklet that Larry just showed to you all. I too want to thank the public. I know these issues are very challenging, and especially when you rely on it for your income and support. And I leave these meetings when they're like this, understanding your concerns. And I just hope you listen to people that have been involved in this, that it takes all of us to work together at these meetings and to make change. I want to thank Israel and Colton and Sam for being here. Huh? I was going to get there. And Maya for here. Okay. And Sam, I understand that soon you're going to be going down another path, and I wish you the best. And I can tell you I think a couple of us can tell you there is a life after Fish and Game. So I look forward to that. Maya, would you close this up for us?
I just wanted to say one more reminder. We do post updates for upcoming meetings, agendas, packets, all of that information on the Fish and Wildlife Commission website. It's just on the borough page, government boards, MSB Fish and Wildlife Commission. And there was a sign-in sheet today. I know a lot of you signed in. If you can at least write your name down, that's great. We like to know how many people are showing up and who is showing up. And if you put your email address down or you want to, I do also have an email list that ahead of our regular meetings, I'll send an email out, a few days to a week in advance of the meeting with the agenda and packet so you can see what the commission will be talking about. So if you want to get those updates and know what's going on, that's one way to do that.
Thank you. Good comment. Our chair raised his hand again. Andy, are you making the motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn, Pete.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, thank you.